Oh, hi, it's your old buddy Zoo, and you might notice I'm wearing a Metroid shirt, and no, the channel isn't sponsored by Nintendo. God, I wish. Can you imagine the stuff I would get? No, I bought this at the Nintendo store when I was in New York with Rob and Andrew. It's a little zoo-to-zoo early Christmas present. Sometimes you just gotta treat yourself.
3 words for you. Treat yourself.
There is a reason I'm wearing this besides my roguish fashion sense, and it's because I checked the calendar this morning and I realized Metroid turns 40 in August. Mario 64 turns 30 in June. And Twilight Princess, which in my brain came out a couple years ago, nope, it turns 20 in November. It's doing some terrible work to my sense of self. And in addition to causing a mild existential crisis, I also realized that 2026 is probably one of the most stacked gaming anniversary years of all time. Think about it. You got Zelda, Metroid, Castlevania, Dragon Quest. They're all turning 40 this year. Pokemon, Resident Evil, Quake, Crash Bandicoot, Tomb Raider, Mario 64, Mario Kart. They're all turning 30 this year. And then Twilight Princess, Okami, and Final Fantasy XII. Again, in my brain, they just came out a couple years ago. No, 20 years ago. 20-year-old games. Ugh. So today I'm doing the math on the ways you can play all or most of these anniversary bangers, starting with the budget option here, the obviously correct option for any high-end 4x3 gaming, and a quasi-endgame device for people who know they're going to keep gaming through 2027 and beyond. Let's get to it. We're starting with the obvious answer because, well, it's the obvious answer. The Anbernic RG477M is my 4x3 device of forever, at least until something better shows up. The 12GB model is $270 from Anbernic Direct, or $300 from Amazon with 1-day shipping, which isn't terrible as far as an Amazon tax goes. And if you don't mind losing a third of your RAM, you can get the 8GB model for $240 direct from Anbernic. Regardless though, both models have an aluminum CNC body, the Dimensity 8300 chip, and most importantly, this is the entire reason it wins, a stunning 4.7-inch LTPS screen. 1280 by 960 running at 120 Hz. Probably one of the nicest non-OLED screens I've ever seen in real life. And before people start yelling about Odins or Thors or Conkers or whatever, here's my logic. Pretty much every game we are celebrating in 2026 was made before widescreen TVs were a thing. Zelda, 4x3, Metroid, 4x3, Mario 64, 4x3, Resident Evil, 4x3, the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy, you guessed it, 4x3. So when you play these games on a 16x9 handheld, you're basically wasting half your screen on black bars. The 477M doesn't do that. The screen is the same ratio for all your classic consoles, and it's the simplest possible idea, but it took China way too long to figure it out. When you play it on this screen, Mario 64 looks like the day you saw it at a Toys R Us kiosk in 1996. Except it's portable, and the colors are better, and you're not getting yelled at by a very overwhelmed sales clerk to quit hogging the demo console. That may have been specific to just me though, so let's move on and walk you through the anniversary tiers on this device. The 40-year-old stuff first. Zelda, Metroid, Samus obviously in full effect on my shirt. Castlevania, Dragon Quest, Bubble Bobble, Outrun. You got a mix of NES and arcade games on a sharp 4x3 screen with the pixel grid intact. This is what the original hardware wished it could look like. And the 477M doesn't even spool up the fan for this stuff. It sips battery while you're playing these classic games, which is pretty cool. And if you do want to push it to the limit, you can run some truly epic shaders on here. You can tweak to your heart's content, but if you slap CRT Consumer NTSC on there, it looks and it feels so 1980s in the best possible way. On to the 30-year stuff, and this is where the 477M really starts to earn its keep. You got Super Mario 64, you got Mario Kart 64, Resident Evil, Crash, Tomb Raider, Pokemon Red and Blue, Super Mario RPG, you got Kirby Superstar, Quake, all sorts of stuff. But the N64 in particular plays in its native aspect ratio. There's no letterboxing, There's no awkward stretched look. And you can add CRT shaders, which makes everything look correct. It looks better than it was. It looks the way maybe you thought it did in the 90s, but it never did for real. Quick aside, just because I think it's kind of cool, Pilot Wing 64 just got fully decompiled this month, like 2 weeks ago. Some absolute legend named G.C. Smith and 7 or 8 other contributors sat down and they reverse engineered the whole thing, and now there's a native PC port already in development with widescreen support, mod support. That's super cool. 30 years later, the N64 launch lineup is still getting updates. It's actually a pretty good time to be playing N64 games, especially with the mod Retro 64 coming soon. Ask me how I know it's cool. And then your 20-year stuff, Twilight Princess, Okami, Final Fantasy XII, and the Wii system itself. The 477M handles PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Wii well enough that this entire tier is in scope, even though it's probably not what a lot of people buy this device for. And if you're going to play Twilight Princess on it, please run the GameCube version, not the Wii version. The Wii version mirrors the map, it mirrors Link's hands because of motion controls, and said motion controls have not aged well outside of playing it on an actual honest-to-God Wii. We do not stand the Wii version of Twilight Princess in this house. Do you understand? So the pitch for the 477M is quite simple. One handheld, one screen, every anniversary game I mentioned today playing flawlessly with ease. For me at least, the 477M is just the obvious answer. And if there's only one segment of the video you watch, I guess that was it. You can leave now if you want, it's up to you, but you're gonna miss some classic zoo antics. And oh, by the way, I still have 2 more picks. So let's just assume you're gonna stay. If $270 is not in the cards right now, then the R36 line is your 100% budget option. Depending on your storefront, you can get these for like $30 to $40. You can get it in vertical or horizontal configuration depending on what you like. And it runs basically every 40-year-old anniversary game on the list flawlessly. Zelda, Metroid, Castlevania, Dragon Quest, trivial. And then half of the 30-year tier also lands here. Resident Evil, Crash, Tomb Raider, Pokemon, Super Mario RPG. That's a lot of game for $40. All that being said, anything 3D from N64 and beyond is where the R36 says, no thanks, I'm a budget device, I will not be doing any of that. So you're not getting Mario 64, you're not getting Mario Kart 64, no Pilot Wings, no GameCube, no Wii, no PlayStation 2, just none of the 20-year tier. The R36 is essentially your 1986 through PlayStation 1 device. That's the ceiling. Which, for some of you, if that's what you're celebrating this year, then you're set. Honestly, the R36S continues to be the best $40 you can spend on retro gaming. But with a list of games like this, it's also the best argument I've ever seen for spending $270 instead. If you want Mario 64 in your life, and you should, because it's a good game, this is the moment you should maybe think about upgrading to the 477M. And then the last one, the AYN Odin 3. This is still my quasi-endgame device. It starts for around $330 for the base model. It's got a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. I've got a couple videos on what this can do, but the short pitch, it plays everything the 477M plays. It handles widescreen games more comfortably, and it does Switch emulation when you can find a working build of Eden, or whatever fork is currently up, on whatever mirror hasn't been DMCA'd yet. The Odin 3 also does cloud streaming, Moonlight, GeForce Now, Xbox. It does all of it without breaking a sweat and just sipping on the battery. It is an all-day experience, and the beautiful screen, the large screen, is ideal for it. But here's the actual reason I put the Odin 3 on this list, and it's anniversary math. Look what's coming next year. 2027 is going to be brutal or amazing depending on your viewpoint. Halo 3 turns 20. BioShock turns 20. Super Mario Galaxy turns 20. Portal turns 20. Crysis, Mass Effect, Assassin's Creed. This is a generational jump in horsepower required, and the 477M is going to struggle on widescreen 360 era stuff. So the pitch is this. If 2026 is the year you finally get serious about retro gaming on the go, and by retro I mean like all those 4x3 systems, the 477M here, it's hard to beat. If 2027 is when you're thinking about celebrating, then you might want to switch to the Odin 3 here. And if you're like me and you've convinced yourself you need both in addition to a bunch of other devices, your wife is going to start to have some questions and you might not have answers to them. Oh, and by the way, if you don't care about PS2 and GameCube upscaling, Anbernic put that beautiful screen in a couple other devices, starting with a less powerful plastic model, the 476H for $155, or the vertical version of the 477M, the 477V, which goes for $240 or $280 direct, depending on RAM. You could also try the RG Slide, but it's not very good. The ergonomics. But I mean, you do you, baby. I'm not going to yuck your yum. Well, Gary, the clock on the wall says it's time for What Did We Learn? And we learned that the 477M is still my pick if you love 4x3 games and you're only going with one device this year. We learned that the R36S is $40 and it gets you 90% of the joy as long as you're okay with tapping out at PlayStation 1. And we learned that the Odin 3 is for people who want to future-proof their retro gaming. 40 years of gaming history across 3 handhelds, and the stark realization that I am no longer young. But you know what? Neither are you, and misery loves company. If this video made you miserable, I'm very sorry. I will try harder next time. Please, give me a second chance. If the video didn't make you miserable, then you're welcome. Regardless, like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. Speaking of comments, let's all comment our favorite 4x3 system or game. I'm sure there won't be any disagreements at all about that. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.